few years ago, a television show captured America's imagination like never before. With a powerful style of storytelling combining outrageous plot lines, dramatic plot twists, and riveting over-the-top characters, Americans became addicted to it, with millions actually thinking it was real. Obviously, it's not. There's no way something this insane could ever actually be real. It's a fictional TV show called American Emperor. Like Succession, Game of Thrones, and Breaking Bad, all rolled into one. Each week, this podcast goes behind the scenes to break down each episode, talking to insiders and fans to bring you everything you need to know. This is Talking Trump, the American Emperor Aftershow. It's America's birthday. Will it be her last? She's 248 years old, or 2.6 Joe Biden's. Welcome to the after show for one of the most engrossing, fictional, because there's no way this is happening in real life, prestige dramas in the history of humankind, American Emperor. This week, in a stunning decision, the Supreme Court handed the Trump character broad new protections from criminal prosecutions. These guys are out there boosting more immunity than zinc. These dudes are hardcore originalists. Screw constitutional text, these guys are taking it back to King George. Plus, the continued fallout from the Trump-Biden debate. Did Biden do as bad as everyone says, or was he pretty good for a corpse?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Biden says he doesn't listen to the haters, but it's mostly cause he can't get new batteries in his hearing aid. Can someone help him? Did Trump defeat his nemesis, or is it a be careful what you wish for scenario, where once Trump vanquishes the Biden entity, he's now gonna have to deal with this? And while the Trump character was mocked for suggesting Biden would be on drugs like Adderall or cocaine, would we all be laughing as much if he said propofol? And in some amazing B storylines, the public learns about Project 2025, the scary 922-page plan put together by Trump allies to fire 50,000 government employees and replace them with Trump loyalists. That sounds exactly like something Trump would do that Trump claims to know nothing about. One positive, if it actually goes through like any of his other programs, it should be fully installed and working by the year 2072. And cameos from two beloved Season 1 characters. Steve Bannon goes to jail. Jail? Can't they let this dude live out his few remaining days before he dies of gout? And Rudy Giuliani gets disbarred in New York. I'm down, Rudy. Just means you can't be a lawyer. You could still go to bars. Tough break for potential clients. You know, people who went into a coma in December 2001 and are just waking up now. A dizzying episode with storylines introduced and resolved at a frantic pace. This is Talking Trump, the American Emperor Aftershow.
They're taking black jobs now. They're taking black jobs.
All right, so much to get into. Let's jump into it right now. I'm Christopher Lansing. I'm joined, as always, by author, filmmaker, and pop culture critic Tom Robb. Welcome. Another phenomenal episode.
Another episode that's really turning traditional storytelling on its ear.
Let's jump right into it, okay? The role of these Supreme Court justices that we've been watching on this show has been building for weeks, and now this week we learn why. In a blockbuster decision, they lay out huge swaths of immunity for the Trump character. I don't want to get too far into the weeds here, but I think the ruling is Trump can basically do anything, take a bribe, set a fire, kill a vice president, ignore alternate side street parking, and he's immune from it. The court also decided that government agencies can't enforce rules. It's okay to arrest people now for being homeless, and I think stop signs mean go. Is that an accurate take from what you've seen?
I think what the writers have done is open a pathway for this dramatically monstrous character to do whatever he wants, whether it's serial killing or child abduction or some sort of international terrorism, it's now okay to put in any script at all. And that opens us up to a new level of drama.
Let me ask you this. Are we headed for, Mad Max type of scenario where currency is replaced by gasoline? Fair to say anything goes here? Just a complete and utter free-for-all?
I think that basically the Supreme Court rulings are an attempt to give a television character permission to do whatever they want, to be king of the world and to be magical, to sue the NFL for a brain injury while he's never played in a game. This is the kind of thing that he's going to be able to do to make himself invisible and go into girls' bathrooms in high schools. We're going to be seeing a lot of this from the president.
Yeah.
Certain legalities, we're going to see in this series are going to be rich people beyond a certain income level are allowed to rob stores. It's illegal to be homeless or blind or of small stature, extra money if you're overweight or alcoholic. People that are unattractive, unless they are slavishly devoted to the Trump character, will be incarcerated in camps. A certain kind of character is going to be catered to, and another kind of character the audience is going to watch be essentially punished. Yeah, it's opposite day in America on this show, and we're all excited to watch what happens.
Have you ever seen a show like the American Emperor show borrow so many different elements from different mainstream forms of entertainment? Like I see with this Supreme Court, a potential place where it's going is towards the purge. I think it's 1 day per year. You're allowed to murder people. And I mean, if I was somebody who was a writer or a producer on the movie The Purge, I'd be like, guys, what the fuck?
Right. They're basically taking a page out of many genres to give their characters permission to do anything that you see in a horror film. So if it's having the president of the United States be part of a group that surrounds a house and torments a family, steals someone's wife, like in the Kurt Russell movie Breakdown, or obsessively stalks someone like Madeleine Stowe in Unlawful Entry.
So I would take it a step further. As people get interested in things in our society, I don't think this show will back down from incorporating those things into the actual scripts of American Emperor. I think as we get closer to the middle of July and we see the home run derby in the All-Star game and Aaron Judge goes and hits a few home runs, I bet you the next week, I think they'll position the Trump character to hit home runs at a home run derby. I think the show is shameless in how it pulls from different genres and puts it into their show, and I think it's a reason for some of their success.
Absolutely. They're going to have the Trump character, I hear from my inside sources, raise the temperature in places like California and burn people to death. Going to have him play Caitlin Clark one-on-one and absolutely destroy her. And this kind of thing is going to continue in every single sort of arena of American struggle.
I think it's what makes the show separate from other great prestige dramas is that their shamelessness of just bringing in things that are happening in society and then basically claiming it as their own. They won't pay Major League Baseball when they have Trump step in for Aaron Judge. They'll just do it. Before we leave this subject of the Supreme Court, I just want to make a quick note. The writers and the producers did allow for one character to kind of have a dissent. They gave it to Justice Sotomayor. She basically said that the decision had made a mockery of the principle that no man is above the law. She went on to say that the Constitution should not shield a former president from answering for criminal and treasonous acts. She said the Navy SEAL team can assassinate somebody. He's immune from all that stuff. That ended up in the final script. And I think you and I both did some separate reporting here about other possible dissents, because what I learned is the very seldom seen Justice Kagan supposed to give the dissent, and all she wrote on an index card was, "This is some bullshit."
Yeah, I think the writers are torn between how much time they're going to give these dissenting characters, but there does need to be a voice of reason as it's sort of taken down the toilet, but they don't want to give them too much power. So they also considered Sotomayor a difficult name to pronounce and wanted to name the justice Diaz. Kagan is going to get more time this season, I think, because it's interesting for the audience to see these characters trying to argue for the truth and being defeated time and again.
This is amazing and brilliant. I spoke to an old executive who was on the team that greenlit this show in the first place. I asked him what the elevator pitch was, and he said, think about the West Wing. This is the opposite of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sold it in the room. Sold it in the room.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to another topic here. We're still dealing with the after effects of the debate. Trump faced down his opponent and dominated him, and we have long discussed here that the Biden character, who's a representation of death, did Trump defeat death?
Yes, I think he did defeat death. I think he's a character who's unafraid of anything.
Well, he's probably afraid of being trapped in an elevator with people who are blue collar.
Right. Or of anybody noticing his Queen's accent.
Yeah.
The Biden character represents a kind of drooling, twitching last rictus of mortification before, eternal darkness. So mentally enfeebled. Somebody who's chewing on carpets and rolling on the ground and rubbing his worm-infested rear on floors in front of press conferences.
That is an accurate assessment for sure. Now tell me about the debate scene and how they positioned the moderators, who kind of went out of their way to say that they weren't going to fact check, which for something as important as a presidential debate with so much at stake, I thought that was pretty realistic. I think it's a brilliant statement to have this whole thing set up and then have the people who are representative of the guardrails say, guess what? We're not going to fact check.
We've talked about this in the past on the show. That was another case of lazy writing, where the writers in the room assigned to the moderator's dialogue had an opportunity to see a preview of the new Mission Impossible movie in a matinee screening, and
which is hard to turn down,
and realized it would absolutely, require hours of work to write something for Jake Tapper to say involving questioning something Trump did. So they just went for a kind of blank stare, which they had a writer's assistant write while they were walking to the theater in the mall downstairs.
It's infuriating sometimes, because it's not the first time that the writers have had an event that they wanted to attend. We talked about how the lobster truck parked outside of the studio called them away from their duties also. You get mad at these guys, Tom, and then they do some crazy, amazing stuff that pulls you back in. So I'm wasting my breath complaining about it.
Yeah, and I think if they're ever called on it, they'll pump up some of the more dramatic sequences. We'll see more flashbacks of Hunter Biden, in a compromising situation, killing someone or stealing a truck and driving, high. So
it's such brilliant, clearly fictional writing. These guys get carte blanche. Okay, well, we're coming up on a break, but I did want to talk about one small B-story plot line. This week, we were introduced to this concept of the Project 2025 document. The reason I bring it up is there's a document kind of hinted at over the course of this year's show. This week, they brought it to light by asking Trump about it. It's kind of like a blueprint for what Trump will do when he is elected, and it involves firing 50,000 government officials and hiring them nothing but Trump loyalists into their role. It was positioned that it was designed by Trump's advisors and by Trump's former aides, and of course they bring it up to Trump, and he completely denies knowing anything about it, and wishes them luck along their way. But my question is, they've worked a little bit hard in planting the seeds here, and there's a lot of weird stuff in the subtext. Do you think we're going to see a lot about this thing as we go forward?
I think we're going to see hints of it. I think what the sort of dramatic point of it is the power of the Trump character's denial.
Because there's a lot of, they focus on the firing of the federal government employees, but there's a lot of weird stuff in that document. One of the things is there's a movement in there to go back to horse and carriage systems and to eliminate cars. Just because one person who designed it, their uncle, owns a stable, and they feel like they want to help their uncle out and have horses rented through his stable to pull carts. And that's part of the platform.
Yeah, no. And Yeah, firing more employees than actually exist, firing people that from their jobs that don't even work for the government, but that didn't vote for the Trump character. And yes, lots of sort of elimination of certain businesses and encouragement of other ones that Trump character has stock in.
There's a weird thing in there that eliminates all Reese's chocolate candy from it makes Reese's chocolate candy contraband in the United States. However, they require cotton candy to be served with every meal. It's very strange.
Yes, and declaring cotton candy a vegetable. So it's served in schools. And of course, the Trump character owns, a giant cotton candy factory.
Would you be in agreement with me if I said that I think we're going to learn a lot about this Project 2025 document as the weeks, start to roll through as we get closer to the election?
Absolutely. And I think we're going to also see projects 2026, 27, 28, and 29 on into the future as long as the series goes. Projects with more outlandish plans.
Yeah.
To sort of tease us to kind of what can possibly happen in a country gone mad.
Yeah, I saw that part of the Project 2027 outline is that the entire country's economy, they're trying to refocus it on ice hockey, which is weird.
Which is weird because it's been a difficult, they first tried to do it with soccer, which, has always had trouble getting off the ground in this country. And they've gone for ice hockey. I think it's because the actor who plays Trump does not like baseball, football, or basketball.
Yeah.
And they got him slightly interested in the fighting that takes place in hockey. And since he's overweight and sweats a lot, he likes the coolness of a hockey arena.
All right, well, we're coming up against the break, but when we come back, we're going to take some of your questions. That's right, it's listener mail. This is Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show. Hello, Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show listeners. Thanks so much for listening and subscribing. We'll get right back with more show in just a minute, but before we do, just wanted to remind some of you that right here on the show at this very moment is an excellent place for a sponsor to run an ad. Just reach out to us on Instagram at American Emperor After Show or by email at AmericanEmperorPod@gmail.com and get your message or product out and associated with this amazing podcast. Hopefully there'll be some space left for you, BetterHelp or ZipRecruiter, because the high-powered sponsors are already claiming their territory. Like this guy.
Hey, it's Carl Flanagan. Welcome to my Facebook Marketplace. I'm selling 2 items today to add to your collection. First is this stack of pretend money. You can act like you hitting the jackpot in front of all your friends. Pretend to be a millionaire. I'm asking for $10 of real money for this stack of fake money. The second offer I have today is for this tray of decorative seashells that I collected at the Jersey Shore, or Ocean City, or somewhere on the East Coast. I'm asking for $20 or best offer on this tray of decorative seashells. Now, I can't deliver or send these items, so you're gonna have to meet me somewhere and pick them up. So holla at your boy if you're interested in buying the stack of fake money or the decorative seashells. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show. We are about to jump into some emails we get from you, the audience. By the way, if you want to send us an email or a question, hit us up at Instagram at American Emperor After Show. Okay, the first one comes from Rebecca Conroy of Madison, Wisconsin.
And it says, 2 main characters from season 1 popped into this last episode. Steve Bannon went to jail and Rudy Giuliani was disbarred. Is this a goodbye to them, and what is their legacy to the show? So, Tom, is this the end of the road for Steve Bannon? And if it is, what will you remember most?
I will remember you mentioned the gout, the brain bleeds, the ulcers, the sort of chronic colitis, the alcoholism, and then just the defiance, the raging against death itself.
Yeah.
And similarly, they're running out of ailments for these characters who are so physically unhealthy. And for a while, it worked as a metaphor for pure evil, to have them sort of corroded from the inside. I think they're going to run out of gas eventually. And much of the country has forgotten who Steve Bannon's character really is.
Yeah. He was such a powerful force in season one. Obviously, he's, it's a fictional character, but it is kind of sad to see him kind of wither away because, if you look at him, you forget because of his appearance. He's actually 32 years old.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible aging situation. The effect of the sort of practice of evil and very heavy drinking and cocaine use has made this character basically evaporate before our eyes.
And then, the other thing you mentioned, the defiance that the Steve Bannon character represented. Do you remember that series of shows where the storyline was, in order to prove that the seas were not poisoned, for 3 weeks straight, he ingested nothing but mercury. He would just eat fish covered in mercury. He used it as a condiment to the food that he ate, and that definitely took a toll on his system.
Yeah, they borrowed a lot of that from Jeremy Piven's riveting, autobiography.
And the Rudy Giuliani storyline, it seems weird to even talk about him anymore. He's disbarred now in New York, but this was such a central character in season one, and he delivered such a strong and incredibly engaging performance. And now it's like they obviously don't know what to do with him, and they're just kind of like letting him wander off into the wilderness. Is it a sense that he signed a 3-year contract, and they just, in year 3, they're just ironclad, they have to pay this guy, and they're just going to let him meander?
Yes, I think so. He signed a 3-year contract. It ran out. He had secretly signed a deal to do a tabloid talk show called Giuliani ! And they were so enraged at that and thought it was a sign of the actor's increased dementia that they just wrote him out.
Yeah, he had been, such a celebrated character in season 1, and then in season 2, if you remember what they did with him, they had him basically convicted, in the court case where he owes millions of dollars he'll never be able to pay. They had that weird sex plot with him where he was like acting as some weird dominant figure against some poor girl who was his assistant. They just didn't know what to do with him, and now they're just kind of letting him meander and get out of there. I hope that the actor's career is not ruined by the way they're letting him out here. Okay, let's move on to our next question. By the way, thank you, Rebecca, for that email. Our next question, this one comes from Kyle Remington of Concord, New Hampshire. It says, "Hey guys, love the show. Don't miss an episode. Is the show positioning the Trump character to have a new nemesis, and who do you think it will be? Will it be the character of Kamala Harris? Will it be the character of Gavin Newsom? Or do you have any wild card guesses?" Let me throw it right at you, Tom. Do you think the new nemesis is going to be Kamala Harris? And I feel like even though that character is very flawed, just her mere presence, her mere laugh, the mere appearance of her is enough to flummox the Trump character, at least for an episode or two.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And they're playing on the idea that the Trump character basically is so deeply uncomfortable in front of an African American. He's like, water on the Wicked Witch of the West, or, the way antique furniture frightens Billy Bob Thornton. It's just the kind of thing that if they put any kind of ethnic character, but especially an African American, in front of the Trump character, he actually physically begins to die.
Yeah, and then the only time they've tried to do this is they did that with that character of Omarosa, who they made kind of like, in service of the Trump character. That didn't work out. And then, of course, tragically, they tried to bring in that comedic duo of Diamond and Silk, and that resulted in the death of one of the actresses.
Right. Yes, I've also heard that anytime you see Trump with an Omarosa character, their scenes are shot separately.
Of course, yeah, well known. What about the Gavin Newsom character? Here's a guy who, if Biden was a representation of death, then is it fair to say this Gavin Newsom character is a representation of Grecian formula for men?
Yes, I mean, he's ageless. Where you were mentioning that Bannon was a man in his early 30s, Newsom is actually older than the Biden character, but has the secret of eternal youth.
Yeah,
just sort of handsome and thin, although seems to offend 75% of the country in this.
that's true. He has a lot of traits in common with the Trump character, the Newsom character. He's just packaged a little bit differently. He's obnoxious. He's egocentric. He is. We don't know, but the taste in women runs along similar lines. It's almost like Trump is looking at a picture of himself, either perfected or warped or something. So that would be an interesting confrontation between those two.
Also, yes, the Newsom character has a penchant for right-wing women. So we're going to see him with all sorts of liaisons with Justice Thomas's wife, for instance, or these characters that he's going to be dating. Is going to be a sort of interesting contradiction in some of these political views.
And I think it's a nice touch where they position him to verbally deny that he has any interest in running for the president's office, yet physically do everything possible to make it clear that he's incredibly interested in it.
Right. Yes, and he has his own Oval Office constructed in his house. Has sort of fake video conferences, press conferences in front of his family, where he basically pretends to be the president.
Those are wonderful scenes. Actually, very warming in a sense, because he's so happy doing that.
All right. We are coming up on another break, but stick with us. When we come back, we're going to close out the show with a few predictions of what to look out for in the coming weeks. More Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show, when we return. Welcome back, everyone. Right now, before we close out the show, a couple of quick predictions for what you could see in the coming weeks.
I put you on the spot, Tom. What do you see coming up on an upcoming episode?
I've heard that there's going to be a volcano on the White House lawn, which I think is going to throw the entire campaign for re-election into a kind of crazed imbalance. It's going to be very exciting, and it's going to put all of Washington under threat.
I love that idea, and I love the action-adventure aspect that they would add to the show. It sounds very cinematic, and I look forward to see it. I hope that's true.
I think we're going to see sort of the political dimension of this turn very Congo, very Jurassic Park, and there's going to be more and more of this sort of epic geological disaster, and it's a way they can address climate change.
Excellent. I love it. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's my prediction. I think that in the coming weeks, you're going to see this, and I think it's going to be very unique, and I wouldn't put it past these writers and producers to pull a curveball on us here. You're going to see more and more pressure put on the Biden character to step down from his role as president. The corpse Biden character that we've talked about. You're going to see him pressured intensely to step down and move aside so someone else can run. And he's going to get so much attention on the show that he'll find an unlikely advocate in the Trump character who will stand up for him and ask America to back him in their competition together, purely because the Trump character will not be able to sit with the attention that the Biden character is getting. He will be starved for his own ego, and thus he will actually become an advocate and boost the Biden character unwillingly, just so that he could get the adoration, the spotlight, the press conferences, so that he will not be ignored. I believe that it is going to be something that nobody will see coming, and that he may end up, and Tom, you could hold me to this, actually endorsing the Biden character.
Yeah, I think so. Very much so. The way a lot of EMS workers will take selfies next to mutilated car accident victims because they're afraid that they're getting too much attention. So I agree.
And I'll take it a step further. If it continues the way that I see, by the end of the season, by the season finale, these two might join forces in a scenario where they're both occupying the White House. They're best friends. They're shaking hands, and that's how the season goes out. And when we head into season 3, the audience is going to be like, "Oh, how are these guys going to be co-presidents? A raving lunatic racist and a walking, basically, essentially a walking dead man."
Right. And I think we can also look forward to the possibility, I'm just throwing this out there, of a gay relationship between them.
Well,
late night double president pillow talk about public affairs.
The chemistry will be there, so I would not be surprised at all.
Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been Talking Trump, the American Emperor After Show. For myself and for Tom Robb, we want to say thank you and join us again next time. We really appreciate you guys listening. Good night.
Good night.